Ladies, let me tell you something. Your constant availability will make you invisible. I need you to hear that with your soul, not just your ears, because some of you are out here bleeding, emotionally dry, bending over backward, answering every call, showing up every time, rearranging your life for people who don't even pause theirs for you. You're doing it because you think that's love. You think that's loyalty. You think if you're always there, they'll finally see you, value you, choose you. But what you're actually doing is fading. And the sad truth is, people don't see what's always there. They don't appreciate what's always accessible. They only start looking for it when it's gone. Let that sink in. You think by being always available, you're securing your spot in someone's heart. But baby, what you're really doing is placing yourself in the background like furniture. Familiar, predictable, unnoticed. When you're too easy to reach, you're too easy to take for granted. And no one values what they take for granted. You were taught that love meant sacrifice, that showing up every time, no matter what, was noble, that being needed was the same thing as being loved. But let me tell you something, being constantly available doesn't prove your love. It proves your lack of boundaries. It proves that somewhere deep down, you're scared to be missed. You're scared that if you go silent, no one will come looking. And maybe they won't. But baby, that's not a reflection of your worth. That's a reflection of the room you've been standing in. And sometimes you've got to walk out to realize who noticed you were, even there. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear. You weren't born to be someone's emotional crutch, someone's afterthought, someone's emergency contact only when their life falls apart. You were born to be valued, not used, chosen, not tolerated. And the only way people will learn to value your presence is if you're willing to risk them experiencing your absence. Let me say that again for the woman who's afraid to pull back. The only way they will learn to value your presence is if you're willing to risk them experiencing your absence. You've spent too long trying to prove you're enough, answering texts the second they come in, rearranging your whole schedule for someone who won't even call you back on time, picking up phone calls at 2 a.m. for people who wouldn't lose a wink of sleep if you disappeared tomorrow. And you think your loyalty is going to buy you love, but all it's buying you is burnout. You're not a robot. You're not a rescue mission. You're not built to be available 24/7 like some emotional convenience store. You're a woman. You're a queen. And queens don't beg to be seen. They move with purpose and power. And the world adjusts to their energy. Let me tell you what happens when you step back. At first, they'll be confused. Why didn't she answer? Then they'll be irritated. She's acting different. Then if they truly care, they'll realize, I miss her presence. I miss her peace. I miss what she brought into my life. And if they don't even notice you've pulled back, then sweetheart, you were invisible the whole time. You just hadn't turned off the light. Turning off the light doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you're brave enough to see what shines when you're no longer pouring your energy into people who never deserved it. Some of you are so busy being available to others that you've made yourself unavailable to yourself. You're tired. You're stretched thin. You're pouring from a cup that hasn't been full in years. And what do you have to show for it? A trail of people who expect you to always say yes, who never ask how you're doing, and who only show up when they need something. That's not love. That's convenient. And you are not here to be convenient. I'm going to tell you something Steve Harvey once said in his own way. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. So ask yourself, what have you been teaching them? That you'll always pick up, that you'll always wait, that your time, your peace, your presence is always on sale. Raise your price. And I'm not talking about money. Raise the price on your access. Raise the price on your energy, because your peace is not a bargain. Your spirit is not a free sample. Your love is not a clearance item. It's worth full price, and the right people will pay it. The wrong ones will call you too much when you finally have boundaries. Let them. Better to be too much for the wrong one than not enough for yourself. Some of you are so addicted to being needed that you forgot how to be cherished. You confuse demand with devotion, but being useful is not the same as being loved. Even tools are useful, but they get put back in the box when the job's done. You are not a tool. You are a woman with value, with depth, with a divine purpose. And until you start treating yourself like that, people will keep passing you by like a fixture on the wall. Let me take it deeper. There's a difference between being there for people and losing yourself in people. You've got dreams, you've got vision, you've got calling, but how can you rise if you're always bending down? How can you build if you're always being pulled? Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is disappear for a while, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Go silent, pull your energy inward. Let them feel your absence. Let the people who claim to care realize how much they were taking for granted. And let the real ones rise from the silence. The ones who value you will notice. The ones who love you will reach out. And the ones who never deserved you, they'll simply fade away like shadows when the sun comes out. And that's okay, because baby, you were never meant to dim just to keep others comfortable. You were meant to shine, but you can't shine if you're constantly running on empty. You can't shine if you're always chasing people who don't even glance back. Pull your power back. Be less available, not because you're mean, but because you finally know your worth. Be less reachable, not because you're bitter, but because you're healing. They don't value what's always there. So stop being always there. Let your absence teach what your presence never could. Let them feel the silence. Let them feel the weight of your withdrawal. Let them feel what it's like to no longer have your warmth, your wisdom, your unwavering support on demand. You've poured into everyone else. Now it's your time to rebuild. Your time to rise, your time to reclaim your visibility, not through overexposure, but through purposeful presence. Be like the sun, not always visible, but always powerful. Be like peace felt more in silence than in noise. Be like love, the real kind, felt in your absence as deeply as in your presence. So no, you're not too much. You've just been given too much to people who never deserved you. And the moment you realize that is the moment you stop being invisible. Let them wonder where you went. Let them remember how good it felt when you were near. And when they finally come knocking, remember this: your availability is a privilege, not a punishment. Let them earn it, because the woman who values herself is never invisible. She is unforgettable. And now that you've remembered who you are, they won't be able to forget you again. Because what people have easy access to, they stop seeing. They stop valuing. You've been showing up like clockwork, thinking consistency will get you the love you crave. But let me break something down for you. Availability doesn't guarantee appreciation. You being on call emotionally, physically, mentally, it just makes you a default option. And default options don't get priority. They get whatever's left. Think about it. The most precious things in this world are rare, not common. Diamonds, gold, time. Those things are limited. That's why people protect them, chase them, value them. But you've been handing out your energy like flyers on a street corner, hoping someone takes one and reads it. And they might glance, they might even smile, but they're not stopping to truly take it in because they didn't have to work for it, because it didn't cost them anything, because you made it too easy. Now I know what you're thinking. If I don't show up, won't they forget me? Won't I lose them? But listen, if your absence makes them forget you, then your presence never meant that much to begin with. Stop fearing the silence, as in the silence you hear the truth. The truth about who calls when you stop texting first. The truth about who checks in when you stop giving updates. The truth about who values you when you're no longer useful to them. Some of y'all are in relationships, romantic friendships, even family ties where your only role is to show up. And the day you stop, it all goes quiet. No one checks in. No one circles back. And I know that hurts. But baby, it's not a loss. It's a reveal of who was really with you and who was just with your availability. Let me say something to the woman who's always been the strong one, the reliable one, the glue. You've worn that label like a crown, but inside you're exhausted. And do they even know? Or have they gotten so used to your strength, they've forgotten you have needs too? Listen, you can be strong and still need rest. You can be loyal and still need space. You can be giving and still set limits. Being always available has never made you more loved. It's just made you more you. And I know that's a hard truth to swallow, but it's a necessary one. Because until you accept it, you'll keep overextending, overgiving, and overlooking your own needs. And baby, you are the one you're waiting for. You keep waiting for someone to finally appreciate all you do, to recognize your worth, to give back what you've poured out. But that starts with you. When you begin to move differently, speak differently, demand differently, the world around you will either rise to meet you or fall away. And either outcome is a blessing. Some people only value you when you stop picking up the phone, when your name stops popping up in their inbox, when your energy is no longer available on tap like a faucet. That's when the truth comes out. Not when you give more, not when you explain again, not when you try hard, but when you stop. So stop. Stop giving to prove you're enough. Stop showing up just so you're not forgotten. Stop answering out of fear that silence means rejection. Because here's the truth. When you hold yourself in high regard, you teach others to do the same. When you stop chasing, the right ones catch up. When you stop explaining, the right ones already understand. Your visibility is not tied to your availability. Your presence is not proven by your presence in their life. It's proven by the presence you maintain in your own. Be present for yourself. Water your own garden. Protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And when people finally come knocking, wondering where the old you went, the always there, always yes, always on you, you smile, you rest, you rise. Because the new you, she's not invisible. She's just unavailable to nonsense. She doesn't rush to prove herself. She doesn't beg for understanding. She doesn't panic when people fall back, because now she knows silence doesn't mean rejection. Sometimes it's protection. Protection from relationships that drain, conversations that go in circles. Let's talk about patterns. If every time you make yourself too accessible, someone pulls away, that's not a coincidence. That's conditioning. People begin to treat consistency as background noise. Not because you lack value, but because they never had to earn access to your presence. You are teaching people that you're always on, that no matter how late, how inconvenient, how lopsided the dynamic is, you'll still be there. And once you teach that, they stop checking the price. They assume your energy costs nothing. But here's the truth. Anything that costs you your peace is too expensive. You are not obligated to carry emotional weight for people who won't even hold the door open for you. You're not required to sacrifice your well-being to be seen. And you're certainly not here to perform loyalty for people who confuse convenience with connection. Start observing who shows up when you're quiet, who checks in when there's nothing for them to gain, who makes time, not just when it suits them, but because they genuinely want to be in your world. Because anyone can show up when it benefits them. But the people who come through when you've withdrawn your effort, those are the ones who see you. So start withdrawing your effort. Stop over-explaining. Stop justifying why you're tired, unavailable, or simply unwilling. You don't owe your energy to every hand that reaches for it. You owe it to yourself to protect your light from those who only step close to feel its warmth. But never ask if you're burning out. Here's the shift when you start valuing your time and attention. You stop giving it out like a flyer. You start treating it like a gift, one wrapped in standards. Because love without standards becomes exploitation. And that's exactly what happens when you're always accessible. People love the version of you that serves them, not the one that honors you. This is your wake-up call. If someone can't respect your space, they don't deserve your closeness. If someone only notices you when you pull away, they never valued you when you were near. And if you pulling back causes them to disappear for good, then they were only there for what you gave, not for who you are. You were not born to be someone's reminder. You're not a text waiting to be responded to. You're not an emotional vending machine. You're not a placeholder for a better moment in someone else's schedule. You are a full, complex, powerful being with depth, vision, purpose. And the moment you stop being constantly reachable is the moment you start becoming unforgettable. Because scarcity breeds attention, and presence becomes powerful when it's earned. This isn't about playing games. It's about rewriting your narrative. You don't need to act unavailable. You need to be unavailable to everything that doesn't serve you. Unavailable to half-hearted connections. unavailable to one-sided love, unavailable to emotionally lazy people, unavailable to being a second thought. Make them wonder where you were. Let them feel the silence. Make them sit with the space you once filled so effortlessly. And don't come back just because they noticed your absence. Come back only if they've grown enough to deserve your presence. Because the healed version of you isn't emotionally reactive. She's discerning. She's graceful in her retreat, intentional in her return. She no longer proves her loyalty through availability. She proves it through boundaries, through discipline, through the courage to walk away when respect is no longer served. You've tried it the other way. You've tried being the glue lifeline, the fixer. You've tried over-delivering love to people who underinvested, and all it left you with was emptiness. But now, you're choosing differently. You're reclaiming your mystery, your energy, your timing. You don't owe anyone immediate access just because you once gave it. You've evolved. And with evolution comes new rules. You speak less. You observe more. You prioritize silence over noise. And the right people will rise to meet you in that silence with intention, with effort, with consistency, not confusion, not breadcrumbs, not half-hearted apology. Because when you stop making yourself so easy to reach, the people who really care will find a way, not just once, but continually, authentically, fully. And you'll stop feeling invisible because your presence will finally reflect your work. You'll stop feeling invisible, not because you screamed louder, but because you stopped whispering your value to people who never intended to listen. When you become unavailable, you start to see what's real. You start to see who respects time, who shows up with depth, who's invested beyond the surface. And most importantly, you start to see yourself clearly. You start asking different questions. Not why don't they value me, but why did I keep showing up where I was overlooked? Not how can I make them love me, but what do I need to love myself enough to walk away? Because here's the hard truth. Sometimes it's not their fault. Sometimes you handed out too much of yourself, hoping to be seen. You sacrificed rest to be available. You answered out of guilt. You gave grace to people who were careless with your time. And while your intentions were good, the consequences were real. They learned you'd always pick up. They learned you'd always adjust. They learned your boundaries were optional. But now, you're choosing a different road. Not out of anger, out of awareness. Not to hurt them, but to finally honor you. You've realized that real love doesn't require you to shrink. Real friendships don't ask you to stay small so others can feel big. Real connections don't rely on your constant presence. They appreciate your existence, whether near or far, loud or quiet. You are allowed to be quiet without being questioned. You are allowed to take space without being guilted. You are allowed to exist without performing. Let them sit in the stillness your silence creates. Let them feel the vacuum left behind when your energy is no longer casually available. Let them reach for you, not because you're gone, but because they realize they never truly held you. You held them. You held conversations together when they got lazy. You held relationships steady when they stopped trying. You held families from falling apart while you fell apart inside. You are not the background music to someone else's highlight reel. You are the main story, and your story is entering a new chapter, one where your attention must be earned, your heart protected, your time respected. That doesn't mean you become hard. It means you become whole. You're no longer running to prove you're worthy. You're no longer bending to be accepted. You're no longer saying yes just to avoid the discomfort of being alone. You're embracing solitude. You're embracing your power. You're realizing that when you're not available to everyone, you become available to yourself. And that's where your next level begins. Because when your calendar is no longer filled with with obligations that drain you, you start creating space for things that build you. The book you've been meaning to write, the skill you've been meaning to learn, the peace you've been needing to feel. Silence becomes your sanctuary, not the kind of silence that comes from being ignored, but the kind you choose, the kind that nourishes, restores, and reminds you of who you were before the world convinced you that your value was tied to how accessible you could be. You are no longer running on guilt. You are no longer powered by fear. You are moved only by alignment. You give from overflow, not obligation. And when you speak, it will matter more because you've stopped flooding people with noise. You've started feeding people with presence, intentional presence. You don't reply to every message now, not out of pride, but because your peace is the priority. You don't explain every boundary, not out of arrogance, but because your truth speaks louder than your justification. People will notice. Some will grow uncomfortable. They were addicted to the version of you who didn't know how to say no. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them adjust or exit. You're not hard to love. You were just too easy to use. Now you're learning the difference. It is not selfish to be selective. It is why you are not cold for having standards. You are clear. And when you move with clarity, you move with power. You no longer beg to be chosen. You choose. You no longer chase, you attract. You no longer overfunction, you balance. And balance is not passive. It is intentional. It requires discipline. It means knowing when to show up and when to step back, when to give and when to pause, when to speak and when to let silence do the talking. Your old self would have panicked at the silence. The new you is at peace in it because you've realized not everyone deserves to witness your softness. Not everyone has earned your vulnerability. Not everyone gets a front row seat to your evolution. Your growth is sacred. Your healing is holy. Your time is gold. And if they want access, they have to come correct. No more half love. No more bare minimum. No more crumbs of attention you're expected to survive on. You're done surviving. You're thriving in your stillness, in your discernment, in your newfound power that doesn't shout but is undeniable. And they will feel it. They will notice your absence more than they ever acknowledged your presence. They will remember the warmth of your voice, the generosity of your time, the kindness in your yeses. But they will now meet the woman who says no without guilt, who steps back without fear, who values herself without apology. You are not disappearing. You are becoming not invisible, unmissable. And if they don't recognize you now, that's fine. You didn't evolve for recognition. You evolved because staying the same was killing your soul. You let go of the need to be seen. And in that letting go, you finally saw yourself. You let go of the need to be seen. And in that letting go, you finally saw yourself. Because what many never tell you is that self-respect often requires solitude. Growth demands space, and not everyone can follow you into the room where healing happens. That space, sacred, quiet, intentional, is not meant for the crowd. It's meant for you. You have always been the woman who filled voids, who carried conversation, who soothed tension, kept peace, made excuses for other people's absence. But now you no longer fill the silence. You let it stretch. You let it reveal. You let it speak. Because silence isn't emptiness, it's a mirror. And what that mirror reflects isn't who you are to others, but who you've been to yourself. You've seen it. The patterns, the self-neglect disguised as generosity, the exhaustion labeled as loyalty, the late nights spent overthinking whether setting boundaries made you selfish. But now you've stepped into alignment. You've realized that loyalty without reciprocity is betrayal in disguise. That kindness without discernment becomes self-abandonment. That accessibility without balance is a slow erosion of your spirit. You no longer open your door just because someone knocks. You no longer pick up just because the phone rings. You no longer respond just because someone remembers your name when they're lonely. You assess, you observe. You protect the energy that once poured out freely to places that never held it with care. And in doing that, something radical happened. You stop operating from scarcity. Scarcity told you to stay available. Scarcity made you fear being forgotten. Scarcity whispered that if you didn't give more, they'd choose someone else. But now you're rooted in abundance. And abundance says if they walk away, let them. Something greater is already walking toward you. You no longer compete. You no longer chase. You attract, not with desperation, but with dignity, because you've realized that urgency is not love. Real love is patient. Real connection respects space. The right people are not threatened by your boundaries. They are clarified by them. They rise to meet them or they remove themselves. And either one is a blessing. You are no longer tolerating confusion masked as chemistry. You're no longer mistaking effortlessness for effort. You no longer mistake proximity for presence. You want intentionality. You want consistency. You want someone who remembers your silence, not just your sound. And most importantly, you want someone who honors the version of you that no longer overextends to feel worthy. Because now you understand you were never hard to love. You were just too available to people who didn't know what love required. Love is not access, it's accountability. Love is not convenience, it's commitment. Love is not attention, it's presence. You're no longer feeding your soul with crumbs and calling it a feast. You're no longer celebrating people who return just because they miss what you did for them, not who you are. Let them miss it. Let them feel what it's like to lose the version of you who settled for one-sided connections, last-minute plans, and half-hearted apologies. That version is gone, and she's not coming back. You're not playing hard to get. You've simply become hard to take for granted. And when people ask why are you so distant now, you don't owe them a monologue. You don't need to unpack your evolution to those who only knew you as a convenient. Growth isn't a group project. You are not required to be understood to be respected. Let them wrestle with their confusion. Let them assume. Let them talk. You're done managing other people's perceptions. You're done explaining your decisions to those who weren't listening when you cried softly through your smiles. You're done making yourself emotionally small just to make others comfortable. You've outgrown survival mode. You've shed the skin of the woman who confused acceptance with tolerance. You no longer dim. You no longer dilute. You no longer bend just to fit into the container of someone else's limitations. You've become expansive, and that expansion will intimidate those who benefited from your smallness. So let it. You are not responsible for the discomfort your growth creates in those who chose not to grow beside you. If your evolution feels like rejection to them, that's a reflection of their entitlement, not your cruelty. You didn't walk away. You walk toward yourself. You are rediscovering your rhythm, your rituals, your joy. You laugh without waiting for permission. You rest without explaining why. You speak without watering down your truth. This new season is yours. It's not up for negotiation. It's not for debate, because now you finally know. Being everything for everyone left you nothing for yourself. And now you're rebuilding brick by brick, boundary by boundary, moment by moment. You are no longer racing to respond first. You are pausing, breathing, and responding when you're ready. You are no longer stretching yourself thin to accommodate people who never checked whether you were already at your limit. You are no longer asking for bare minimum loyalty in exchange for your full capacity to love. You are choosing differently. You are choosing peace over pressure, quality over quantity, depth over drama. You're giving your time to people who respect it. You're offering your attention to those who return it. You're opening your heart in environments that feel safe, steady, and sacred. This is the woman they were never ready for. The one who no longer floods the room with availability, but fills it with presence. The one who doesn't need to be everywhere to be impactful. The one who doesn't shout to be heard. The one who has nothing to prove, because her existence is the evidence. And from now on, you walk differently. You speak with intention. You love with discernment. And you live in alignment with who you were always meant to become before the world convinced you that availability was your superpower. No, queen. Your power is in your presence. Your power is in your pulse. Your power is in your ability to choose when, how, and if you show up. And when you move from that place, you don't become invisible. You become unforgettable.